let's think about this now. I'm gonna make a little video, meta video here about how interactions work. Now, on the one hand, you have Gary, and I saw his latest "What the fuck" video, and yeah, I understand where he's coming from. Why didn't you support me? On the other hand, you have To Be Serious, who's an example of someone who's like, why do you even care? Why do you bring him up? Blocks you, big deal. And true enough, there's other people I don't. And I see how it can be perceived that I apologize or offer apologia for Gary in a possibly, abused spouse sort of way even. But that's not really the case. I mean, from where I sit, people, see, online, one of the things I've developed an ethos for myself in this conversation. And I think it's sort of it's street philosophy, and it's very accessible in that sense. It's every class involved, and so on and so forth. But there's something noble to it. It's street philosophy, but it's still philosophy. And this whole recording of it online, making it recorded, there's sort of an inherent aspect that is, something akin to peer-reviewed, a really amateur version, not a scientific one. But there's some advantages even to that. And the really noble part is that it expands out to the public. It's the public conversation. It expanded out from the courts of Europe, expanded out past the editorial pages, past letters to the editor, past magazines and cable access, out into just a very, very wide and ever-expanding conversation, and that's a good thing. And one thing in my ethos is that I am honest to people. I give them feedback. If I did block someone or made some comment, well, that was really ridiculous, and went on my way, I don't hit and run. That's part of the ethos. You want to ask me, what do you mean? I will tell you what I mean. Now, if you keep asking, I might say, hey, I've told you, that's it. But these are the things I do to try to show respect and have a one-to-one relationship. Now, when I was very young, as I've said before, I moved schools a lot. I knew what it was like to be the new kid. And, I started to, at a young age, understand that some people don't think about the material facts first. They think about what I call associational logic. And sort of a childish name, whatever, I thought of it when I was a child. But then this is when people make their decisions and give their opinions voice their opinions, because it's not like your real opinion is affected by this, but they voice their opinions based on the associations that they have. Like, for example, I don't get along with Professor Anton. I haven't made a big deal of it, but you could see, 4 or 5 videos of how I feel about him and his chosen method of interacting. I saw recently he said, I think it was to, oh my God, that was surreal, this video. I've only seen half of it so far, of, who's that dude, that Rand, Market Anarchist guy, whatever, interviewed Anton. And anyway, Anton was talking about how he was told by the chair of his department to go ahead and try out YouTube, and that he really wanted to push the book culture, and his shock and awe at various things about that. And that all makes a lot of sense to me, and goes hand in hand with many of the things, if only in a it signals. It's not directly related, but it signals a lot of the things that frustrate me about him. Okay, so I could go in there and go, well, I don't like him, boom, I'll tell him he's stupid. But that's just not how I think, okay? If I go into a video of his, which I see from someone else replying, or somehow I get an interest, or I just think, hey, I'll see what he's up to, or whatever. If I see a video that's like, oh, that's interesting, I'll say, oh, that's interesting. You know, I already went over what I said in his other video, and that's what I thought. Now I see how somebody could read that, and in the context and the other comments think, oh, well, I'm not getting support. Well, here's the thing. I'm not here to support people in that sense. I support you by honestly giving my opinion, including if you specifically ask for it, I might give it, but you might not like it. I might have been silent because there's a yin and a yang, you know? And I grant my respect by being willing to respond to somebody. And I take pride in being able to tolerate a great deal of variation in anything that I can reduce down to superficial. And superficial things do have an impact that can be important. They can amount to substance. But I will strip that down pretty far. Now, some people take more advantage of that than others. And to be serious has never made me take advantage of that. Now, when in Menham years ago was, arguing with her and calling her a bitch and things like this, he got called on the misogyny of that. And I called him on it. But then again, it wasn't like some big activist campaign of indignation for me. And a lot of people would have expected, if they were to be serious, more, at least liked more of a friendship-oriented indignation where I would take personal offenses instead of just saying, hey, that's not too cool. It shows where you're coming from. But on the other hand, in Menham, while he never really is one to apologize per se, he did admit that there were problems, and he's admitted other similar problems with words and language. And I don't remember the last time he said that to someone. I certainly remember him being rude, but in certain things, he seems responsive. Okay, another example is with Gary, and you should listen to this, Gary, and try to remember and get the idea of this, is when those nutcases at the time, people aren't nutcases all the time necessarily. You can have a nutcase period. So they were being nutcases, drove up to Gary's house. That he's Spinoza something now. I forget his old name and Naomi, but they drove up to Gary's house to hassle Gary. And they announced that they were doing it. And, I commented it, and I think it was very apt, my comments. In fact, you could go back through any of these dramas that I speak up on, and I would love for someone to hold me to what I've said and see how emotional I got, and if it distorted my views so that I couldn't stand behind it now, because I highly doubt it. Maybe certain aspects I might say, well, I was being rude because of this and that. But basically, you can go back and see that I criticize them. Now, that's a defense of Gary, but in this, Gary wouldn't necessarily feel that way at the time, because I was also criticizing Gary, because he'd come up with the Jew-Mexican term, which has a whole ironic thing about the guy not even being Jewish. But having said that, he was. But anyway, there was that criticism. But then again, Gary admitted and understand. That's the other thing I was thinking of, words like bitch. Gary sometimes, understands. And yet, if I recall, he was also like, but I think I got blocked during that period as well. I didn't really feel supported. Well, it's kind of like that. To me, trust is a long-term thing. Trusting me to be honest. It's like in this context, it's not so much that I think you should trust me not to quote-unquote turn on you or quote-unquote be on the other side of something, but rather that if I am on the other side, you'll know it. I won't be secretly being on the other side. I won't be plotting against you. I won't be on the other side and everything after that. Those are the kinds of things you can either appreciate or not, but that's what you're getting as a part of the ethos. And, some people take more advantage of the kinds of toleration than others, but in general, I'm just preserving my ability and right to say what I please. And so that's my explanation of this meta, what this affiliation is. And yes, there's a kind of friendship, but the primary thing is this ethos of public debate. And I have made real life friends with people I met online, and I know how that goes, but it involves meeting in person. And if I meet you in person, then I will allow some of what I used to just think of as associational, obviously, as a friend, a certain kind of forgiveness. Maybe I won't call you on something at an inopportune moment. In this public debate, we're all putting our statements up. We're asking, I'm doing you a favor when I call you on it. If I'm your acquaintance and friend in public debate, then not ignoring you is the respect. And that's why I get in a situation where Gary feels he isn't defended or supported, which, yes, I'm not here to really be supportive in that sense. And to be serious thinks I'm defending and supporting him too much, and she doesn't understand why. That's the balance. It's because I say what I think, it comes out in the middle, and if you think someone's crossed the line, the last thing you like to see is the middle.